Hello, folks. Oh my bitch! I'm on fire! Nah, just kidding, it's just my lamp. Before we actually get to that though, I do have quite a bit of news to say before we get to the topic. So I'll put a timestamp on screen to allow you to skip it, but this is kind of important, so do consider listening. So not last Friday, but the Friday before that, September 30th. I decided I would be brave and tell my coworkers about my YouTube channel, and boy am I glad that I did. There were about 3 out of 4 of them in the room when I told them, and one of them learned about it a few days after that. Since then I have uploaded 2 videos, and those were Vointa Toiker and the last episode of Plumber Sunshine Within. And you know what, they gave me permission to say their names, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Their names are Colton, Zach, Garrett, and Shane. And I know for a fact that most of them are gonna be watching this video once it's uploaded, so what up? Shane is basically having a marathon with the Kale-Idle-Scope videos, and that gave me the idea to calculate every single one of them and see how long they are combined, and put that on my channel description. And it's over a day's worth, Shane. Prepare yourself. And Zach said he learned more from my videos than he ever did in school, and that's only when he watched a few of them. Guys, this is the kind of support I've been looking for so long. I was too afraid to ask for it at my school simply because I was afraid that I would be bombarded by people that either do like the video or don't like the video. And I was more afraid that they would like the videos and they wouldn't stop harassing me about it, so that's why I never told most people. Yeah, I know I graduated in mid-May 2019, and the first video was from May 2nd. But before that current video, I was doing other videos. They were just a lot worse than the Momo video, believe it or not. So yeah, it would be a shame if any of these 4 other people decided to stop working where I work anytime soon. I'm not planning on leaving. You shouldn't either. But of course it's your life, so you do what you want, but I'm just saying I would be really sad. Alright, well I think I've said enough news. Let's get on to the topic of this episode. So I've been pretty desperate for having an idea for BBM for a while, and thank God for my dreams, because if it weren't for them, and if it weren't for the upcoming Pixar movie called Elemental, yeah, this would never have come to my mind. I'm going to describe what my dream was last night, but I'm trying not to make it the main focus for today. Last night I had a dream that my stepdad, mom, and myself were in the car going to some old town I used to live in a long time ago. We drove past the house that I lived in, along with my grandparents, and it was also haunted, by the way, I think, if you believe in that crap, but I just have to bring it up, I'm sorry. But we were driving down the road a little bit, we took some turns and stuff, and we saw that one of the transformers on the pole was leaking electricity. It was like going all over the place. And also, not right next to it, but the house right next to that one was on fire. Instead of calling 911, my mom decided to actually call them. I don't know how she got their number, but basically, some like little girl, we'll say she's like 9 years old, picked up the phone and was like, hello? My mom said, hey, you do realize your house is on fire, right? And she says, yeah, I know. My mom was like, well, aren't you gonna call 911? And the girl was like, no. What would I tell them? About my movie collection? And during this time, you can hear the grandmother of the girl screaming, going, ah! Ah! I'm thinking her and the grandfather were kind of stuck upstairs with the fire on the bottom floor or something, and it's like, I know she's 9 years old, but cut the crap, you're not that dumb. I think the grandfather would have been sleeping during all this, and it's like, man. So that gave me the idea to call 911, and I've never actually called them before in my whole life, which is good because you should never want to call 911. During the time I was on the phone with them, we passed through like 4 more fires throughout that town, so a total of 5. And every time we saw a new one, I would be like, another fire? And the 911 dispatcher just started laughing, like, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous dream, guys. So I called them and said that there was a fire in a house, but I didn't know the address. And like I just established, there was like 5 fires throughout the town. So clearly somebody would have noticed, besides just me, and my mom, and my stepdad. The 911 dispatcher was basically like, well, do you see any helicopters that are surrounding the area? Like, do you see any police helicopters? And I'm like, no. Aren't you gonna do your job? I didn't actually say that, but it's a silly dream, but thank God I had it because it gave me the idea to talk about elements as a whole. In this episode, we're going to discuss the 4 main elements, which are fire, water, earth, and air. We're going to discuss which one at its worst, could cause the most damage. And you know what? The air part of this video might be similar to the tornado episode, but we'll try to make it work. Now there's more than just 4, I think, but a lot of those are just different forms of the base elements. Like, for example, solid water is just ice. Kind of reminds me of that video with the silly test answers where the question was like, briefly describe what hard water is. And the kid just wrote ice. I mean, what the hell else would it be? That's how I would describe it. That's pretty legit. But anyway, so, yeah, like I said earlier, fire sucks. It does have some benefits, and it did keep our caveman ancestors warm at night, but when it gets out of hand, it spreads quickly. Depending on the temperature of the air, it can spread even faster. Like in California, there was a huge forest fire that took up like miles or something. Christ. Yeah, in my lifetime, I've only seen about 1 house that's on fire, and that was like almost a decade and a half ago. I shouldn't be seeing any houses on fire, but hey man, it's better than seeing like 60 of them in your life. But why does fire exist at all? Like, where does it come from? Basically, it's the result of applying too much heat to oxygen, and it just creates that somehow. Yeah, when it gets out of hand, it gets totally terrible. And they say it's the worst way you could die. Like, if you get caught on fire, it's the worst pain you can imagine, probably. It's definitely up there. I don't know if it's the absolute worst. I mean, like, I don't want to get into something completely unrelated, but Vlad Dracula, remember him? You don't because you weren't alive, but centuries ago he impaled people and it took them like days before they actually died, so I know that's completely unrelated, but we're talking about the worst deaths, and that would probably be the worst way to die, but I digress. So yeah, fire might be the most unpleasant way of dying when it comes to the elements. But let's talk about water. Earth has a crap ton of water. More water than land, probably, or at least surface area land. Like the crust, you know? But overall, compared to the whole size of the Earth, there's not much water in, on, or above it. Now, water can suck too. Tsunamis, you heard of those? Basically, there's 2 ways tsunamis can form. If a meteor lands in the ocean and it's really big, and it causes the waves to go up and they just go over the land, I'd say that spreads more quickly than fire, actually. It's a lot heavier than fire, that's for sure. So that's one way it could spread. Or a really big, like, crack in the bottom of the ocean that could cause tsunamis as well. I think more often than not it's that second one I just described, whenever the tectonic plates separate at the bottom and that causes the waves to start rising and stuff. It happens more often than the meteors. I mean, like, I went to Destin, Florida in 2016, and it's right next to the Gulf of Mexico. I was literally in the Gulf of Mexico, guys, and it was huge. All I could see was just water. Kind of made me a little worried. Like, not really, but think about it hard enough, it's kind of scary to be close to that much water. So, yeah, I'd rather be wet than burnt. But, when we're talking about the amount of damage it could cause, well, I'm thinking water. At least when it comes to these 2, we haven't gotten to the other 2 yet, but yeah, water can be pretty dangerous. But let's move on to the final 2 elements here. Air, like I said earlier, is basically tornadoes. I mean, not exactly, but tornadoes do come from wind, and it comes from when warm, humid air collides with the cold air, and you know, it just starts circling, and that creates a tornado. Just like fire and water, air can be pretty dangerous as well. But is air faster than water? Like when a tsunami occurs, which one goes faster, the wind or the water? Now that's a good question. And you know what? I have no idea. Because water is a liquid, and it's heavier than the wind, I'm gonna go ahead and say wind just to be safe. Yeah, really strong wind and tornadoes can knock down some pretty sturdy stuff, but we still have one more element, and out of the 3 we've talked about, tell me which one you would rather face. I would say rather, but that's only implying like 2 of them, and whatever, man. Which one would you rather face out of the 3? Alright, finally, Earth, which is basically dirt and other solid land stuff. Basically, earthquakes. I've only felt 1 earthquake in my entire life, and that was a very small one. I remember the 1983 one from, I think it was Japan, where there was a huge earthquake that they caught in an office building, and they recorded it and everything. I'm reading the Google search for why do earthquakes occur, and it says, it's when underground rock suddenly breaks and there is a rapid motion along the fault. I'm assuming that means when underground rock gets closer to the crust and it causes it to shake because it's so large and, yeah, basically stuff like that. Yeah, earthquakes as well, along with the other three, can cause some serious damage. But now it's time for the main synopsis. Which one can cause the most damage? I'm sure a simple Google search could figure this out, but let's try to make things interesting here. Well, when we started talking about the topic of this episode, you guys were probably thinking it was fire, but actually I think that might be the least threatening. Here's what I think, in my opinion, is the order of these four elements, which ones are least threatening to most threatening. Fire, air, water, earth. Now, I could be totally wrong here, and you might have a different view on it, but here's what I think. Yeah, even the least threatening is still a total pain in the ass. It spreads quickly, but these other three can spread even quicker. And you know what? Firemen are able to take out fires, I wouldn't say easily, but they are able to do it. Tornadoes, tsunamis, and earthquakes we have no control over. So that's what makes me decide that fire is the least threatening. I know I said earlier that air probably goes faster than the water, but water is heavier, so I would say if that were to come crashing into the land, yeah, it could cause more damage than just a really strong wind. But earthquakes, though, holy hell. Depending on how large that underground rock is coming to the surface, that can cause a huge earthquake. Thankfully, the one and only earthquake I felt in my life was minor, but trust me, they get huge. And just think about it, it's rock. It's just coming to the surface and it could be massive. There the three spread, but this doesn't spread, it just rises, basically. Actually, I take that back, air doesn't really spread. The point is, it's kind of hard to describe what I'm talking about, but I'm thinking earthquakes could be the worst out of these four. You know what, I'm tired of making this episode, so I think I'm just going to leave it there. Probably could have done a better job describing these elements, but we'll be here all day. So tell me what you guys think about this episode, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.